Now we're going to talk about operations and expressions in Python. So we're going to understand how Python does math and how it makes decisions and also how it compares decisions. And we're going to use everything that we call operations and expressions. So in Python, an expression is usually referred to as any piece of code that returns a value. So any piece of code that returns a value is an expression. So think of it as a little machine that basically takes input, processes that input, and then it gives you something back. To help us understand this, we're going to just switch back to our code editor, and we're going to try and do some operations here. For example, let's say we want to do something like 5 plus 3, right? Again, I'm writing this as a comment. So 5 plus 3, we expect 5 plus 3 to return 8, right? So we expect this to return 8 as the result. And if we try and add some sort of text, for example, we want to add a text like hello, which is a string. I want to say just say hello, then we add maybe world at the end. Then what we expect this to return a statement that says hello world, like that. And these are what we refer to as expressions. So at any given point in time, Python is going to give you a result. So anytime you try and type in something and Python gives you a result, that is an expression. And to help us understand these expressions, the first thing that we need to understand first are arithmetic operators. So arithmetic operators are how Python does its mathematics, or rather helps us do our math. So we have addition, we have subtraction, multiplication, we have division, we have floor division, we have modulars, we have power, we have all these kinds of operations. But to help us get started, we need to declare two variables. We're going to declare a variable called a, and we'll give it a value like 10. We also declare a variable called b, and we initialize it to 3. So these are our two variables. And for us to do our operations, I'm going to just do a print, and I'm going to just try and format this out so that it's easier for us to understand. Uh, First of all, we're going to declare another variable called result to make it a bit easier. We'll declare a variable called result, and result is going to be, let's start with addition, a plus b, like that. And to get our result down here, we can print it out. And I'll try and use an f string here. So we'll use an f string, then we'll say, okay, should be like that. We'll say the result is, and we're going to have curly braces there. Then we pass in the result variable that we just declared. So we pass in result like this. If we go ahead and run our code, we'll just say Python. Again, remember, in my case, I'm using Python 3, but in your case, you can just type in Python or py if you are using a Windows machine. In my file, it's called operations.py. And you can see it tells me the result is 13. This is the result of addition. Now, there are all these other operations that we've just mentioned. For example, subtraction. If I do subtraction and we run this, you see the result is 7, and everything else is going to follow like that. So if you want to do multiplication, you use the asterisk sign. If you do that, you expect the result here to be 30, and as you can see, the result is 30. You can also go ahead and do division using the forward slash sign. That is does division, and you see the result is 3.333 all the way up to 5. And there is another thing you can do here. You can do floor division. So for floor division, you just use two forward slashes like that. If you do that and run our code, you see we get the result to be 3. What this shows you is that when you want to get the result of a division, but you just want to get an integer as a result, or a whole number as a result from there, you use floor division, where you use just two forward slashes like that. Now, one of the other operations that we also do, arithmetic operation, is what we refer to as a modulus operator. And a modulus operator is represented by the percentage sign. What this means, modulus is the result, the remainder after division. When you divide two numbers, the remainder of that is what we refer to as the modulus. Now, if we run this, You see we get, I need to save first. So once I save and we run it again, you see get the result as 1, right? 1 is the remainder after division. Remember, if you divide 10 by 3, you get 1 as the remainder. So that is what you're getting here, and that is what we refer to as a modulus operator. The other sort of arithmetic operation that is important for us to understand here is power. So if you want to raise a number by to a certain power, what do? You use double asterisk signs like this, double like that. So what this is going to do is it is going to raise the number a, which is 10, by to the power of 3. If we run this, you see we get 1,000. 1,000 is 10 to the power of 3. So we use this asterisk sign that you see, double asterisk signs that you can see here. Those are the arithmetic operations that we carry out. And these arithmetic operations, you can use them to build a number of things. For example, you can use them to build calculators, you can use them to build games. There are lots of things that you can use to these arithmetic operations to build, and we're going to see more of this as we proceed. Also, in the previous challenge that I gave on building a simple calculator, one of these you could have built it without going to the complex route, at least for now that we went through, is by just using the simple operation, just typing everything out and printing the result like this. But yeah, so that is on arithmetic operators. Now, when we talk of operators, we also have what we refer to as comparison operators. And the comparison operators are the ones that we use to compare things. So if you want to compare values, you want to compare numbers, all that we use other comparison operators. So if you want to check if something is equal to another value or not equal, if it is greater than, less than, if you want to check if something is just less than something, we use comparison operators. So to help us understand comparison operators, I'm still going to use these two values, A and B, but now allow me to, okay, actually, I'll just remove, I'll just comment these two out. I'll just comment them out like that. Then we're still going to use A and B, but now we're going to print out the result. So the thing about comparison operators, the result that you get is always going to be a Boolean. So it's going to be either true or false. So for example, we want to compare A and B. If you want to compare whether A is equal to B, we just say A, then of course the value that you want on the left, and you use a double equal sign, then you have B. So this is a double equal sign, as you can see here. So A equivalent, we're trying to see if A is equal to B. And this is why when you use a single equal sign in Python, we don't call it equal. We don't mean by like A is equal to 10. What this means is that we're just assigning the variable A, we're just assigning it the value 10. Okay. So if we print this thing out, you see we get false. It is telling us that A is not equal to B. If we want to check if A is, or rather we now want to see if the value is not equal to, we use an exclamation mark instead. So if we run this, you see we get true here as the answer. And then you can, the same thing is going to happen across all the others. So I'm actually going to just print everything out separately. So now we're going to just print A not equal to B. So you can see all the results here. So you see the second one, the result is true. Then the other one, they can see, you can check if a value is greater than another value. For that, use a print statement. So if you want to just, let's say A is greater than, we use the greater than sign. A is greater than B, like that. If you run this, you see it tells us the result is true because again, 10 is greater than 3. If you want to check for less than, you'll just again do the opposite there, less than, and then you see you get the result to be false. Then there are also other things that you can do. For example, you want to check if something is greater than or equal to. For that, you will just say print. Then we'll just say if A, we want to check, is we're basically claiming that A is greater than or equal to B. So if this is the case, A is greater than or equal to B, we save this and run. The result that we get is true, but we can also check if it is less than or equal to. So we can just say print A less than or equal to B. Then we run this and you can see the result that we get here is false. Now, the one thing that I want you to note from here is that the code editor that I'm using formats these signs like this. For example, you can see how it formats this, how it formats this. But in your case, if you're, for example, using Visual Studio Code, if you write less than or equal to, it will be less than like this, then equal to. So of course, there's no space in between. I'm just trying to avoid it being that. If it is greater than, it's still going to be the same. We'll have greater than, then equal sign right next to it. So I'd like you to just take note of that in case you notice such an inconsistency in your code editor. But yeah, so those are comparison operators. So again, you can see how these comparison operators are really crucial. In the calculator application, what we talked about is how you can compare two values. For example, you're getting input from a user and you want to see if that input is equivalent to what you expected. So we're using these comparison operators to do that. And that is how the comparison operators work. So the first one, where you have the double equal sign, this here means just means equal to. Then this second one, this is not equal. So you just say not equal. Then here we mean greater than. This is less than actually. Less than. And then greater than is the opposite of that. Then this is greater than or equal to. So greater or equal to, and this one is less or equal to. So those are your comparison operators. So far we've seen arithmetic operators and comparison operators. Now to take us further from here, we also have what we refer to as logical operators. So logic operators are the ones that we basically use to try and implement some sort of logic into applications, but it is a combination of these operations that or other operators that we've seen here right now. So what I'm going to do is, okay, we can actually just proceed with that. So logical operators now. So this right here, logical operators. So for logical operators, they're also really important because they help us try and sort of implement some sort of logic between what you're working with. For example, I want to print something here. So we're going to start with a simple comparison operator. So we're saying we want to compare the value a. Then we say if we want to say a is greater than 2, right? But we just want to compare two values strictly. So I want to say, for example, is greater than 2, then use an AND operator. So AND is a logical operator. So we say A is greater than 2 and B is less than, should be B here, B is less than 20. If this is the case, if we run our code, you see we get the result to be true. This is the last one here. Because of course, A, the value is 10, which is greater than 2. B, the value is 3, which is less than 20. Right? So this is what we refer to as a logical operator, but we call it the logical AND. Let me just write it here. We refer to this as the logical AND. And this is important because when you want to compare two things, for example, you want to just a simple logic for you to maybe get a visa for a country, rather not really a visa, but okay, to be allowed to actually enter into a country. You're told that you must be the country, rather a citizen of that country. Then you'll also maybe need to present some evidence to show that, right? If you're someone who is a foreigner who is entering into a country, another country, you need to be asked to, maybe you need to have a passport and you need to also have a visa. So you can use the end. These are two things that they strictly have to be met. These two conditions strictly have to be met. That's the point I'm trying to make here. So the other thing that you can do is you also want to, in a case whereby you don't want to strictly meet these two values, these two conditions, but one condition has to be true. For example, here we say A is greater than 10, right? And then we say or A is greater than 10 or B is equivalent to 10. If this is the case and we run our code, you see we get the result here to be false. The reason we're getting the result to be false here is because both of these conditions are false, because A is 10 and 10 is not greater than 10. then the other value is b. B is 3, and 3 is not equivalent to 10. But if we make one of these values to be true, for example, you say b is equivalent to 3, then we expect the result to be true as much as the first result is false. Let's run this and see. You see, you get the result here to be true. We're getting this because when you use the or, the logical or operator, what you only intend or what you expect is we expect only one of the conditions to be true, but not strictly two of them. We use strict equality is you use this strict inequality here, that's a strict comparison when you want both of the conditions to be met, like both have to be met. Then the other one that you can do is you can use the not operator. So the not logical operator, or you can say something like not. Just use the not as the word. Then you can say not a less than b. So you can say something like this. So if you run this, you still get the result to be true. What you mean here is first we need to compare a and b, right? Is a less than b? A is not less than b. That means that this result is false. So we are trying to negate this result. To negate the result, because it was false, the negation of false is true, and that is what you're getting right here. So that is the logical end. This is the logical or, and this is the negation as well that we use not. So basically think of this like the way the traffic lights work and how traffic lights make decisions. So this is ideally how traffic lights make decisions. For example, like a stop where you need to control traffic. So apart from these operators, we have a number of other operators as well. Apart from logic operators, we have what we refer to as assignment operators. So they call assignment operators. And these assignment operators are also really important because when you're working with variables, you're going to often want to update the values of those variables. And this is where these assignment operators come in. So assignment operators, the one that you've already encountered up at this point is the single equal sign, where you want to say, for example, you have a variable called score and you want to assign it a value. So you use an assignment operator, which is the equal sign. So you're assigning the value 10. Then there's also what we refer to as the add and reassign operator. So the add and reassign operator, the add and reassign assignment operator is, for example, I have the value score, but I want to increase the value score by a certain number. So what I'll need to do is I'll just have score plus and then equal sign, and I'll have 5, for example. If I go ahead and print score here, let's see the result that you get. You see, you get the result to be 15. What this means is that we have increased the value of score by 5. So the other way that you can rewrite this, just to try and understand it, this is the same as saying score is equivalent to score plus 5. So it is taking remember, this is an assignment operator. So assignment in Python happens from the right to the left. So whatever value you have on the right is the one that is processed first before the one that is on the left. So in this case, this operation here, score plus 5, is the one that is carried out first before the assignment is carried out. So that is why this score, this variable score here, we're referring to the score that we have in the beginning. So it is taking 10 plus 5, then the result is 15. That result is assigned to the variable score, and then we are printing that result down here. I hope that does make sense. So again, the way that we write this now, as the way we write it as an assignment operator, is we just say plus equal sign like that. This basically adds and reassigns a value. So that's what it does. Then there's the subtract and reassign. So as you've already guessed, the way subtract and reassign works is you just take score, and then your subtraction assignment or other operator there. Then you have the value that you want to subtract. So if you want to subtract 5, let's say I want to subtract 9, I'll do that. So if I print this, you see I get the value 6. Now this is where I believe there could be like some sort of a confusion maybe, or you're just curious how this is happening. So what is happening here is remember we've talked about assignment and reassignment, right? So we'll have comments to help us understand this. So here, what you're doing here is that we are assigning a value, and we already agree on that. Then the next thing we're doing here is we're adding and reassigning a value. So this is what is happening. Second, add and reassign. Then lastly here, what you're doing here is you're subtracting and reassigning a value. Subtracting and reassigning a value. So this is how this works. The score 10 is the assignment, and then we're doing 10 plus 5, which is 15. Now, remember we said reassign. This means that the new value, that is the new value of the score variable, or the score variable has a new value of 15. 15 is the value that is carried down to line 27. So then now it becomes 15 minus 9. Then the result is 6. That's why we're getting here the result as 6. Right? So how it works again, it prints, this is a concept that is well explained in JavaScript, but just how to understand this is what we refer to as synchronous operation. Basically, the next line is not going to be printed out or even executed if the previous line has not been executed. So line 25 is the one that is executed first, and then line 26, and then line 27. Ideally, it happens the same from the beginning. So each line has to be executed before the next one. But that is what is happening here. So we are doing the assignment operators. So again, you can just basically comment that one out. And then if we run this now, we get the result to be 1, because now the score value that we're dealing with is 10 minus 9. But if we bring this one into the equation, then it becomes the result here, which is 15, 15 minus 9, or 15 subtract 9, then you get 6 as the result here. That is assignment operators for you. So now that we understand this assignment operators, we understand what an expression is. Just as a reminder of what we said an expression is, we said that an expression is any piece of code that returns a value. An expression is any piece of code that returns a value, and you can think of it as a little machine that takes in input, processes that input, and then it gives you something back as the output. So now from here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a task, and this is the task that you're going to do. I'll actually just write it here. I'll write it as uh, I'll write it as a comment. So this is what we call multi-line comment, same as what you talked about in strings, multi-line strings. So what I want you to do is I want you to ask a user. So I want you to ask a user for two numbers. Ask a user for two numbers. Then I want you to print the sum of those numbers. Print the sum of those numbers, and also print the difference of those numbers. The other thing that I want you to do is check if they are equal. Check if they are equal. After checking if they're equal, I want you to also try and reassign the value. So reassign the value of the sum by 10. So again, you'll see how you can be able to do that. Again, feel free to just uh, think out loud about this. Then I want you to when the results that you're going to print, I want you to just well formatted print a well formatted answer. What I mean by this is I want you to print use like an F string, have some statement at the beginning. For example, the result is, then you pass in that variable to give you what the result should be. So this is going to be your task for this session. Then again, if you face any issue, type in the questions in the comments below rather, and let me know what is the blocker that you're facing. I'll get back to you and answer you on this. Then yeah, so that is it. Thank you for joining. You've done an awesome job if you've been basically coding along up to this point and checking in some notes. You've just learned the basics of how Python works with math, how it works with logic, and comparisons using these operations and expressions. So thank you, and I'll see you on the next one.